Today I'm going to be sharing how I made my solar cooker, the temperatures it gets to, and what I cooked. So let's get into it. I'm going to start working on a solar oven so I could cook for free. The solar cooker I am making is a box type cooker. It consists of the outer box, then you have an insulation layer, then you have an inner box, which is your cooking chamber, and then you need a transparent cover so that the light can shine through like a glass lid. Then you need reflectors, like a mirror, to direct the sunlight into the box. 3 things you should have decided before building your cooker. 1 is material. What are you going to use to build your box and the thickness of the material? The second is decide on what type of insulation you are comfortable with using. And 3rd is what vessels you're going to use to cook your food. Once all this has been decided, then you know what dimensions to make your box. Yeah, so just make sure you account for the thickness of your material if you want the inside to be a certain dimension. I have my shape lined out, so now it's jigsaw time. The angles and dimensions of my cooker will be provided at the end of this video. This shape is the side profile of the oven. Now I'm going to trace this out on my new piece and cut this out. Since I freehanded the angle cut with the jigsaw, this did not come out even. Of course, I freehanded it. My solution to this is to use some double-sided tape. Oh, thank God, I actually got it aligned. I need to get this side clean edge so that way the lid sits perfectly. So I'm gonna use more double-sided tape. So I'm gonna sacrifice a little bit of this board. Feels really good now. Ooh. Moment of truth now. Everything should be fine. I know I already checked. This was more work than I thought. I thought it would just be a couple jigsaw cuts and yeah, but this looks really good and I'm glad I figured it out. So that's one way to do it. So now I just need to determine how wide I want the oven. Trusty booth. When I made my solar cooker, I was figuring it out as I went. I made it wide enough so I could hold these 2 pots, but I didn't know I had to make a second inner box, that's the cooking chamber. So in the end, my cooking area was a lot smaller than I had hoped. Okay, we're gonna go with that, 20.5. The top stretcher and the floor piece are going to need a bevel cut, so it's something to keep in mind when you're cutting your material down to length. This is the back. It's for the oven floor. Stretcher. Now I just need to add bevel cuts to the floorboard and to the top stretcher. Now this one is the top stretcher. I could do the bevel first and then I take it down to the width because it's just easier that way for me. Almost done cutting material. I just realized I have to make one more cut, and that's to this top board that's gonna go like this across. Now the back is gonna go all the way up, so I just had to remove the thickness of the wood, which is 3/4, from this piece of wood. So don't forget to remove the width of your material. I forget that a lot. All right, done. So now I'm just gonna sand everything on this side. When adding pocket holes to the boards with the bevel cut, just be mindful that you put it on the correct side. I'm in a slight problem here. It sits almost flush. I could easily sand this, but on this side, it goes really off. So I think I'm just gonna draw a line and just cut that little part off. Okay, well, I outlined it. It's important that your assembly is as flush as possible. That way there is less gaps.
Oh, that's a lot better.
And your lid sits flush with the frame. Now, I'm gonna insulate this oven. Not gonna lie, it's probably been over a week since I worked on this. To insulate this oven, I just need to make a smaller version of this box in the box. And I need to leave 1.5 inch gap all around as an air gap for insulation. And then also 1 inch from the top. And then this is half inch material. So I take up less room inside the oven since my cooking area is getting smaller and smaller. And I'm just need to cut this down to size and put that box together. This 1/2 inch plywood isn't a great insulator, so please look into what you can use instead. To start making the inner box, I don't know why I used paper and outlined the inner box when I could have just flipped the whole thing over and traced it and then cut it to my dimensions. I did so much unnecessary work here. Looking back at this, I think it's really funny. Don't do this. Just flip it on its side. You already made it already. You don't have to do all the work again. Oh. The gap at the bottom is very small. Maybe I can just shove some insulation in there. But around it, I'll be able to put foam. All right, I got my big box and my little box. So now I just gotta sand everything. I'm done sanding, but as I was sanding, I noticed that there's cracks, that there's gaps in here in certain areas. Cannot have that, especially in an oven. So I'm gonna fill those with wood filler and then go back and sand them down again. I keep my wood filler in a plastic KFC bag. This is plastic wood filler and it does dry to be airtight, but over time the joint could separate and then air can get through. So if you want, you can use a stronger sealant like a silicone or an epoxy, but just use that on the outer chambers. Time to insulate. I think I said that earlier. Okay, but for real this time. I'm gonna use foam to insulate it and paper and some cardboard. And it's pretty thick. Let's put this in here. It's biodegradable, non-toxic. So perfect. So this is the type of insulation that washes away when you pour water on it, but it's not gonna be under that amount of moisture. So I'm just gonna use it, and if I need to replace it later, I'll do it when I need to replace it. Yeah. I recommend using a stronger insulator. The one that I'm using does not have a high R value. The R stands for resistance, and that means the resistance to transfer heat. So I was figuring this out as I went, so please do your own research. A high density foam would be better in this situation, but it just depends on what you're using. This will need replacement in the future, and I could only fit cardboard in this little section. So my insulation layer is not the best. It definitely needs improvement. Oh, I also have this L. I'm just gonna add it to hold the inner box down to the floor of the outer box. Added this L to keep the cooking chamber secure to the floor, but there's still gaps at the bottom, which is not a good enough seal, so you're gonna wanna seal that as well. So please, again, do your own research. The insulation cavity needs to be covered, and you don't want that exposed in the cooking chamber. I'm just covering it with 1/4 inch ply because that's what I had on hand. It is not the best thing you could use. You want to use a thicker material here. I'm gonna hold off on adding the top piece because if I were to add it right now, it's gonna be really hard to add the oven liner in this tiny crevice. So I'm going to wrap this in oven liner first and then install it. So I'm gonna use oven liner to line all of the inside to make it cooking safe, and it's black, it'll retain more heat. BPA free, whatever that means. Hold it for me. At first I was using my hand stapler to apply the oven liner, but I found this really difficult to do by hand, so I switched to my air stapler to install the rest of the liner. I use the entire roll, which is 75 inches, to cover the inside of the cooking chamber. all done. Paint it black. Now with the box done, I'm going to start working on the glass lid. I'm cutting a dado a little over a ½ inch deep for the tempered glass. This is the glass I'm using, 18.5 by 23.5. Tempered glass, 1/4 inch thick. It should retain heat better. Now for the borders, I pass the board through the saw twice for 2 blade widths to get to this thickness for the dado. There's a slight bit of wiggle room with the thickness, and I want to leave that for expansion because this is going to get a lot of heat. I'm going to frame the tempered glass with mitered edges. If you do the same, just make sure that your dado is against your fence so you don't cut the miter in the wrong direction. I am not great at cutting miters and getting them square, which is why I am inching my way to making sure that the fit is correct and that I don't cut too much. Oh, I have to cut it more because of the dado. An easy way I figured out how much to cut off was just to use my square to outline the board against the board I need to cut, and that's the amount I need to remove. All right, I did it. This was probably the one part. This one has a little bit loose of a dado, but it's okay. I'll get glued together. But I did it. I did it. I did it. I'm sure some of you watching this might not be a big deal, but to me, this is the first time I've gotten a square miter. I'm very happy about that. Hopefully that works out. This is the hinge I'm going to use. Now, this just gets too close to the glass. The glass goes this deep, so they intersect with each other. So I'm going to add this here to offset that. That way, when I add this, it doesn't get in the way, and I can drive it this way and this way. Using only wood glue for my mitered edges was not strong enough. This clamping made it come undone later, so I recommend using thicker wood or a stronger adhesive for your miter edges. What the hell? Okay, got a problem now. While the frame is still gluing together, I'm going to make the additional lid that goes on top, which is a mirror, reflective portion of it. I don't have enough material to make like one solid piece, so I'm going to have to put 2 together. And I'm really like going through my scraps now. So I'm just going to use this. Hear me out. I think it's just like an MDF board. I know it's not ideal, but I can just easily replace this lid later when necessary. I'm going to cover it with reflective material on the inside anyway. And then the top I can just paint it because this is pretty messed up. So I'm just going to use this. And that way it's wide enough or I only have to put 2 together rather than gluing a bunch of stuff together to make one panel. Okay, now back to installing the glass lid. I chose to hinge from the side rather than the top because I thought I didn't have enough material thickness to go from the top, and this is the only hinge that I had, so I decided to do this. So I made this jig for this gorgeous handle. Dude, this handle is so pretty. Ooh. I'm also adding this hardwood piece here at the bottom to hold the lid because it is quite heavy. So I want this support here at the bottom corner. Initially, my plan for making the reflective lid was to have it to just go completely over this and open up like that, which is what it needs to do. But I have this handle here now and I am attached to it. I'm gonna make the reflective lid a little more narrow so it doesn't get in the way here and I can have both. So I'm gonna cut that off. For the reflective panel, I'm using a mirror sticker. It's much easier to handle than an actual mirror. It's easy to cut and easy to apply. Both lids are installed and now I can see that there is a gap between the lid and the oven. To close this gap to not lose heat, I'm going to use a smoker gasket. Here I'm realizing that the lid has nowhere to rest and it's too much weight for the hinge. Designed for. This one's also very easy to apply and you could also cut it to fit your needs. Gaps gone. 1:15 p.m. So this past week I've been using my oven to see how it performs. Now this is the temperature of the inside of the oven. Now I'm taking the temperature of the pot. Oh my god, dude, did you see that? Another day I made some eggs. I made a pot roast and potatoes and peppers. Ooh. It's hot. Oh my god. It feels really good to have hot food. I was also able to make bread.
You know me? I just have to have a piece right now while it's warm.
So there's a few things that I did to the oven after I was started to use it to improve the design that I didn't record that I want to share with you. One is adding this chain here at the bottom and at the top. Added those there to keep the lid open while I took stuff in and out of the oven. The only bad thing about it so far is that when I close it, the top chain gets in the way. So I have to hold it and put it down. So that can definitely be improved on. And something else is the strut, the hood holder. So far what I've been doing is just using 2 sticks. They're 2 different sizes. So when I lift the mirror up, I have these little parts here that hold the stick depending on how high the sun is in the sky to hit the vessel. So I either use this one, or if the sun's higher and I need it to target like this, then I switch to this bigger stick. This also needs improvement. I want to replace this eventually with something that is adjustable so I don't have to keep changing this. I only have 2 options in angles like this also. I also added a magnet here and up here at the top. Added the magnet so that when I open the lid, the reflector doesn't swing open, so it stays attached to the other lid. Also, this handle doesn't get very hot. Actually, it doesn't get hot at all in the sun, so it's no problem touching the metal handle. So I highly recommend using stronger joinery for the lid, and especially thicker wood too. I think would be better to use as a frame for the glass, because I had to add braces here because it couldn't handle the weight. The tempered glass is like, I don't know, 5 pounds or something. So I couldn't handle it. So I had to add this here for security since it's gonna add an angle. I was worried the frame and the glass would come apart, and it did. So I have this here and one on the inside over here. I keep my solar oven on a mobile cart so I could adjust it easily to the sun's movements throughout the day. So if you're interested in seeing how I built this cart, I also have a video for that. So that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and let me know if you make an oven. I would love to see yours and what improvements or design or adjustments to the design that you make. Thank you for watching.